Welcome to Michael's Record Collection, where we talk about great music with the people who make it and the people who love it. And joining me for this episode, very happy to have with me, is vocalist Steve Overland is with me from Kings of Mercia and also with FM. Thanks for your time today.
Oh, nice to talk to you, Michael. Glad to be here.
So I want to talk to you about this new release that just came out, Kings of Mercia, self-titled debut album. And it's been a busy year for you because FM's 13 album came out in March.
That's right. Yeah.
Another great album in its own right.
Thank you.
How has that one been going for you?
Fantastic. Yeah, we've I mean, this is why it's been quite tough to get things going with, Kings of Mercy kind of had to wait. I had to we've done two British tours, two European tours for the 13 album. And I'm out again the week after next, doing another 5 shows, then another 5 in November, and FM just keep going, Michael. It's like we'll just keep touring until we do the next record, which we're now going to start. And it's amazing, really. A band that's been going as long as that, and it just seems to go from strength to strength, which is fantastic.
It's good to hear. Steve, for my listeners and viewers, I want to just clarify, because I've done a lot of shows about progressive rock, so I want to make sure that people know this is the British rock band FM, not the Canadian progressive rock band.
Yeah,
FM.
that's right. That's right.
Before we get into the Kings of Mercia, I gotta know. I always ask this question: what was your first favorite record?
My first favorite record, my brother, who is original guitar player in FM from the first 2 or 3 records, he had an album in his bedroom that I stole called Rocking the Fillmore by a band called Humble Pie.
Okay.
Steve Marriott, Peter Frampton, all those players.
Sure.
I used to hear him playing this album, and I was a young kid then. I was like, this is amazing. I'd never really gotten into music in a big way. I'd heard my mum and dad playing the Beatles and all that stuff, but this album, I just had to have it. So when he was out with his friends, I broke into his bedroom, stole it, and hid it in my room. And when he was out, I used to play it non-stop. It was like my favorite record. It still is a great record. It's one of the best live albums of all time. So still love it. Still a fantastic album.
How old were you when this happened?
God, blimey, I would have been 9 or 10 years old, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
So very young, very young. I mean, I started playing at 11, so it would have been it was those sort of records that got me into the idea that I wanted to play the guitar, really. So I would have been pretty young, yeah.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned you come from a musical family. Were your parents also musicians?
No, not my parents. My uncles and further relatives were all in bands and played various musical instruments. So I think it skipped my mum and dad, and my brother was the main thing for me. He started playing in bands, and I used to go and watch him rehearse in all these weird places, and there were always all these girls there. I remember being a young lad and thinking, I tell you what, this is not a bad way to go. I might have to try this. So, I just sort of picked the guitar up one day. He had lots of guitars, and I was 4 years younger, so I borrowed a guitar one night when I was bored. None of my friends were out, and sat behind the sofa with a chord book and learned how to play some songs. And that was it, really, Michael. I got hooked on it, and I was well into soccer, football when I was young. I used to play for the school and the county, and music from that night, which is quite a strange thing, took my life over at 11 years old. And that was it. I've been doing it, all my life. Never done anything else, which is a fantastic thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how many people started out with just saying, if I stand up there with a guitar, girls will look at me.
I think that's most rock musicians, isn't it?
Yes. I think so.
Yeah, the playing's a bit of an inconvenience, really. It's the lifestyle, really.
Yeah. So this album, Kings of Mercia, came out on Metal Blade Records on September 23rd. It's available on their web shop and I'm guessing Amazon, but it's probably better for you guys if they buy it through your label. But it came out on CD, digitally, and also on this beautiful flame marbled vinyl, which is amazing. That's got to be, as an artist that has been around since since before records went away for a while, that's got to be pretty amazing to see your work come out on this kind of a beautiful disc.
It's beautiful. I mean, they've done a great job on everything with it, Metal Blade. And I've made records with lots of record companies. This is my first one for Metal Blade, and I have to say that they're really on the case. They do things properly. And I mean, we've got 4 different color vinyls. They've done 4 different color vinyls, all in different sort of packaging. It's just amazing. They've really done a great job on this record, and they really believe in it. And I do, you know, and Jim does, and we're all really behind it. And it's kind of taken over at the moment because I'm doing a lot of these, which is fantastic. And the response to it has been amazing. So they've done a great job, and it is always great. I love the fact that vinyl is where it is, back where it is, you know, and because I'm sure, like you, in my day, I just used to go out and buy an album because of the sleeve, because I wanted to own records. And there's something about it, you know, and we've gone through all of that. Kids basically just downloading records with no packaging, no cover, no anything, no identity, to going all the way around in a circle to like having sleeve notes, having photographs of the band in the studio, which when I was a kid, I used to open the inner sleeve up and if the band, pictures of the band recording the album, it was like a book to me. I'd just study every picture, and it kind of drew you into the process of how recording worked and things like that. And I used to love albums as a possession. I still do, you know. So the fact that now my records come out on vinyl is a real thrill, you know, a real thrill. And people are back into buying it. It's great, great news, I think.
Yeah, there's nothing like the experience that you have with opening it up and reading through the liner notes while the music plays and following along with the lyrics and looking at the pictures and all of that. It was a very tactile experience, and you don't have that. It was never a background activity. It was always a very active activity.
Exactly, exactly. You know, and the whole thing is, you know, when album sleeves and all that really didn't matter anymore. When you do what we do, they still do. You still make your records exactly the same. So to now have an album sleeve again, where you can make sure the artwork is right and it has to look great, you know, and the packaging to me is just as important as the record. It's got to be real quality, you know, and I think the Kings of Mercia artwork is fantastic. The symbol with the guy with the, you know, and it's just I think it's really important, and it's becoming important again because people are getting records. So it's a piece of art. The sleeve is a piece of art, you know, and they used to cost a fortune to get designed, you know, by Roger Dean, all these famous artists. And so I'm just glad that it's back, and hopefully back to stay, and it will grow even stronger and bigger, you know.
Yeah, same here. So let's talk a little bit about the lineup of Kings of Mercia. This is yourself, Steve Overland on vocals, Jim Matheos and Joey Vera of Fate's Warning on guitars and bass, respectively. And the great Simon Phillips on drums, ex-Toto, Derek Sherinian. I mean, the guy can just flat out play.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing lineup.
Oh, it is. It's a great band. That's why we're so excited. I mean, I remember Jim, when we wrote the album, we did it in lockdown, Mark, because Jim got to me via a famous rock journalist in the UK that's been a friend of mine for years, a guy called Dave Ling. And he was trying to contact me. He wanted to make this album where he gelled 2 styles. He wanted to have a blues rock singer, like a Paul Rodgers kind of vibe, with his music, parts of his music too. I was on his list, and he got in touch with me through Dave, and we made the record really very quickly because we didn't really know what we were making. It kind of evolved as we went. We were both off the road because we couldn't tour. And the style of Kings of Mercy developed as we went along. And then when he said to me, when we'd finished the songs, and he said, you know, I'm thinking of getting Joe to play the bass, and I think I might be able to get Simon Phillips to do the drums. And I'm like, really? You know, that'd be fantastic. You know, I think they all work so well together. All the different styles, my voice, Jim's detuned, massive guitar sound, and Joey's got that kind of growly, aggressive style. And then you got Simon, who's just the most brilliant drummer ever, or one of, you know. And you never know how these things are going to work when you try and gel 2 styles. But it's worked fantastically well, and it did from the first song. So It's been great. It's been fantastic. It's a great band.
Steve, you called it a band more than one time, and I wanted to make sure, is this a band or a side project? How are you guys approaching this, and are there plans to be live concerts?
There's got to be, yeah. I mean, we are. We're set to make another two Kings of Mercia records. So it's a band. It's a band, and we could get festivals as the kind of launch pad for the band, because obviously being with Jim and Joe from Fates Warning, you're going to get different kinds of festivals to what FM play. So it would be great to go out and do some of the festivals in America, do some in Europe to launch the band. And I think the band justifies that. It needs to be a living, breathing thing, not just another thing that we do when we're off the road with our other bands. That's not what we want it to be at all,
Yeah, for sure. So I don't have the album credits for the record. Did Jim write everything? Did he just write music and you wrote lyrics? How did the writing process work?
He wrote the music. I mean, when he first got in touch with me, Mike, he said, I got the email from Dave Ling, said, I want to put you in touch with Jim Mateus. And so I'd never really listened to Fates Warning, but I made myself listen, and I was pleasantly surprised. They're a great band. They have great songs. They've got great content. It's a bit proggy at times. It's fantastic, and but I didn't know how it was going to work. So I said to Jim, look, fantastic. I'd love to have a go at this, Jim. Send me over. Oh, sorry. My dogs are barking. Sorry.
That's all right.
No, he sent me over a backing track. And I said, look, let's just do one song. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, we've not put a great deal of time into it. We'll just do one tune and see how it comes out. So he sent me a backing track, and I listened, and it was, I mean, Jim's stuff, when he sends you what he calls his demos, sound like an album. They're fantastic. He's a very clever man. And so I got this track, wrote this song called Humankind. That was the first song we wrote. Sent it back to America. I thought it came out great, not knowing what the response would be. And all of a sudden, it was like Jim just came back to me within about 15 minutes of me sending it from the studio and said, this is amazing, Steve. He said, I've got to play this to the record company. Played it to the record company, and we got the deal on the strength of one song, just one song. Yeah. And then he sent me a few more. I wrote those, and everything he sent me suggested what it should be like, because it's a slightly different style for me. And it just became this evolving thing where Kings of Mercia were born, and it grew, and the sound was developed, and it became this great band. And so, he sent me the backing tracks. I wrote the lyrics, wrote all of the words and the titles, and that's how it worked.
Okay. How did the band decide on the name? Was there submissions and then you picked from them? How did that go?
Well, there's always submissions, isn't there? And you get some real cracking names come out. And we had a list of names, some of them absolutely terrible. And Jim had this name that he loved, Kings of Mercia. And I was a bit like, I think it's a great name, Jim, but you've got Kings of Leon, Sisters of Mercy. Is it too close to other band names, And but I said, I'll tell you what, it's the best one of the bunch. I think it's a great name. Let's live with it. Let's carry on with the record, and let's call the band Kings of Mercia whilst we're finishing the record. And then all of a sudden, we just became Kings of Mercia. That's what we were. And it seemed to fit as the music went on. And so there was no deep meaning behind it. It just became what we were, And the record company loved the name. Then when we got the artwork, it all made sense. So, it's a different kind of name, and it seems to stick in people's minds, which is a great thing.
Now, have you already worked in this style before? The pandemic forced so many people to just record their own parts at home in their own home studios. Had you done that before with FM, or was this a new way of working for you?
Well, I've done all sorts. I mean, I do a lot of other stuff as well, Michael, lots of different records. And so I've done a lot of, having some of the band in Sweden, some in New York, and I've done that many times. And to be honest, in this day and age, it works fine, It's never like having all of you in a studio, because you can't bounce off of each other there and then at the time when you're recording it. But me and Jim have become really good friends. So we were in constant touch. I'd send stuff back and we'll be emailing every day. We've done Zoom calls like this. And so it's very much, you know, a collusion of all of our two ideas as we've been going along. You know, we bounced off of each other. He'll say, I'm not sure about this. What do you think, Steve? And we just come up with this thing that between us, it's been a real proper collaboration. It's been really easy because he's such an easy guy to work with and very clever. So it's been a really easy album to make, to be honest. It's been a real pleasure, you know.
Good. When you get these, when you got these demos from Jim, did they already have Joe and Simon on them, or did they add their parts later? How did that go?
No, they were just demos. So they were programmed drums. Jim had his original guitar parts. He redid them and replaced all of that. So they were purely demos, but great sounding demos. And then obviously we didn't know at the time, like, who was going to be the rest of Kings of Mercia. So once we'd done all the stuff, I'd done all the guide vocals and stuff like that, we then talked about who we'd like to be Kings of Mercia. And that's when we came up with it. Joey did his bass with Simon. We got Simon, we've just done the promo videos. We've got Simon and Joey to film their stuff. And I did mine in England with the director. Funnily enough, there's a director called Russell Cherrington who had worked with Fates Warning and Jim in the States. He's an old friend of mine. We didn't know this at the time. And he said, I can't believe it. He said, Jim, that you're doing an album with Jim Mateus. I said, yeah, I am. Yeah. He said, how brilliant is that? He said, Jim's a massive old friend in Joey and all of Fates Warning. So when we were going to do the videos, it was an obvious thing to get Russell to do them because he knows everybody. And he got them to film their stuff with the same lighting, with a different director. And it was great the way we did it. And it looks like a band all in the studio together on the video. It's very cleverly shot. So, you know, really pleased. But it's a small world, you know. An old friend of mine who comes to CFM and he's a film director guy that I've known for years, was a really close friend of Joey and Jim's as well. So amazing, really.
Yeah. So you send in your guide vocals, and when you get the finished track sent back to you, what is your reaction when you hear the final product?
Well, the thing with this album, it was a really strange one because I was so wrapped up in other things at the time. We were doing the new FM record. I had other things I was working on. So I just kept writing the songs and sending them back. And I kept thinking, yeah, this is great. These are sounding great. So I'd send them back, and Jim would come back with, this is amazing. I'm going to send you another 3. So I'd write another 3 and send them back. And to cut to the chase, to be honest, until I got the album finished record, I had no idea how great a record we'd made. It was all being sent back in parts and bits, and when it was all mixed and put together and Simon and Joey played on it, it just came alive. And it was just so all of a sudden it was like, I listened to it, I got sent the finished mastered thing, and I'm like, this is amazing. I had no idea that we were gonna create this, you know, because when you're sending them back one at a time and things are being added and Jim's changing parts and you get those back till you get, this is the album, this is the running order of the songs, this is how it's going to run. And I played it and I thought, wow, this is something else. It's incredible, you know, really incredible. So very proud of it, very proud of it.
So there are 10 songs on the album. Were there more than 10 and a couple didn't get used, or were there just these 10?
We just wrote 11. We wrote 11. Every song, and even the one that we didn't use, didn't get used because we had other songs in a similar vein. So that's the thing with Jim, you know, whether Jim goes through songs and throws 5 in the bin, I don't know. But what I get, everything is of such a high standard that you just write them and they just, you know, you got great things to write to, you know. So as I said, it was an easy process.
What was the last song you guys finished on this album?
Oh, blimey, you got me there. I think it might have been Is It Right? I think that would have been the last one we did. Humankind was the first one. Wrecking Ball was after that, and they kept coming, you know. Too Far Gone was one that he sent me that he said, see what you think to this, because it's different. It starts off like a Bad Company acoustic guitar song, then goes into this huge heavy section in the middle, and it was easy to write. It was amazing to me because I did it and I just thought, when I did the first part of it, you know, it was quite pretty, and it was a bit Paul Rogersy, and I thought, is it going to work? Will Jim like it? And he just came back and said, this is beautiful. This is amazing. And so it was like that. That's what it was like. It was like everything he sent me. It was like, this is fantastic. It was like, not one point did we go, you know, I'm not sure about this. It just seemed to work. It just seemed to work, which is the best way. It's fantastic when that happens, you know.
Yeah, it makes it certainly a lot more fun when you're not sweating and slaving over. You know, we got to fix this line. We got to fix the middle 8 or whatever. You know.
Exactly. You know, and we had none of that. As I say, it just all seemed to fall in place, which was, you know, let's hope the next one's as easy. You know.
Yeah. The album opener is, and I won't go through every track, but Wrecking Ball is a very appropriate opening track because it is a balls out rocker, and it tells you right up front that this is what you're going to get on the album. And it's probably one of my favorite, you know, early tracks on this album in terms of, you know, I've listened to it probably about 6 or 7 times, but I think this one will have some staying power.
Great, that's great. Well, it was the lead track. It's the first track we released out to the world, and it's just a straight to the point song, isn't it? You know, and to be honest, I love so many of them still every time I put the record on, and it's probably a lot of that's down to the fact it's a different kind of album for me. So, you know, Wrecking Ball, though, I think is definitely up there, one of my favorites too. Yeah. You know, I'm a big fan of Humankind. I think it's got a really great anthemic chorus, so I love that track too. But I could just go on and list all the ones that I like, so I won't. You know,
I think that Joe's bass work on Sweet Revenge is among his best on the album. It's what you talked about earlier, his sort of growling type of bass really works well on that track. And I also think that Set the World on Fire is maybe my favorite Simon Phillips track.
He plays amazingly on that. I mean, he plays amazingly on all of them, but you know, he's what he is. But that's the great thing about the different players, I think, Michael. Like Joey's got a real unique, angsty kind of sound, and it really works underneath Jim's guitars, which is why they've probably been together for so long. Yeah. You know, and Jim gets the most colossal guitar sound I've ever heard. I need to find out how he gets that. You know, I'll try and get some of that in the next FM record. You know,
yeah, get some secrets, steal some secrets from. I wanted to ask you about the harmony vocals on the album because I didn't know if you did your own harmonies or if the other guys added harmonies or if it was a mixture of both.
No, I do all the harmonies. Yeah, I've tried to back off on harmonies because, I mean, as you know, with FM, it's all about kind of big choruses with lots of different harmonies, lots of oohs and ahs and textures, eagle-ish kind of harmonies with FM, you know. But I tried not to do that and pretty these songs up. Just angry 2 parts with myself and just the odd chanty thing. But I backed off massively on the harmonies because I can layer harmonies forever. I can go into a studio because I do lots of backing vocal sessions as well. Yeah. So people get me in just to do backing vocal arrangements and things like that. So, you know, I had to really pull back the reins on this and think, no, don't pretty it up. It's got to be angsty and have attitude, you know. So
yeah, and I don't think you guys overdid it. I think that they really work well, maybe best on the album on Everyday Angels.
Yeah, I would say so. That again, once again, I remember when Jim sent me that song, and I had to really think about how I was going to write it and not make it too pretty, you know, because it's you know, you go from something like Wrecking Ball to that, but somehow they all seem to work together, you know, because of these 2 merging styles. So yeah, I mean, I once again, though, I could have gone much more to town on that song, but I did hold back. You know, I tried not to do too much, you know.
Yeah, I think it shows. You have really, they don't stand out particularly except for maybe on Everyday Angels and Too Far Gone. I think other than that, it's pretty straight ahead.
Yeah, that's good. That's what I tried to do anyway.
All right. I do like Liberate Me. It's built on that nice crunchy riff from Jim and a great solo. Of course, he's a master at that. And yeah, I mean, you've already talked about, Humankind and Wrecking Ball. Did you have any others that you got from him and you were just, this one has to be a single or anything like that?
Well, to be honest, I mean, Too Far Gone was the one that surprised me because when I got it, it was such a beautiful guitar part, the acoustic part. So for me, it was a surprise. I'd had all these like real angsty, heavy songs, and I got this lovely acoustic guitar song, you know. So that's why I think I sort of got the brief from Jim when we first started. He said, "Look, Steve, I want you to do what you do, and I'll do what I do." That's the whole point of this, you know. And so it just immediately suggested Paul Rogers, Bad Company in the verses, and a big anthemic chorus, you know. And that was a surprise, that song, because it was so different from all the other ones I'd got. Most of the others are very straightforward, big, heavy, detuned guitar songs, which I love. And the thing I like about it too, Michael, is this: with FM, you get the kitchen sink. There are sequences. There's this, there's that going on. There's harmonies. There's clean. There's dirty guitars. There's 59,000 keyboards. This is like massive guitar sound, growling bass, and a great drummer. That's what you've got. And me, you know, and it's very stripped back, but very powerful. And I love the fact that that means that all of the performances from all the musicians shine through because you can hear everything that everybody's playing, you know, and that's a change for me. And I really like that. I really like that approach.
Yeah. When someone buys this album and they put it on and they listen to it start to finish, what do you want that listener to take away from that experience?
Well, I hope they basically, it was always, as I said to you, it was always going to be a risk that the two styles would merge. I hope the people that like Fate's Warning can understand that this is still a lot of Fate's Warning, but it's also got me in it, and vice versa. The fans that like the more blues rock, melodic, to be honest, my fans that I've spoken to about the tracks they've heard online, and it's been really well received. They love it. So I just hope people will be open-minded and see how well this works, merging these two different styles of rock music, and it makes for something different, you know. So I hope, you know, they give it a chance and they just listen to it for the content of the songs, because I think the songs are great, you know. And I believe it's a fantastic record, and I hope they do too, you know.
Yeah, for sure. The question I have, I guess, too, is this: that in this day and age, this type of music, it's not the mainstream like it used to be. So how do you reach your audiences?
Well, you've got to play live if you can. That's one. You've got to keep the social media side of it going, keep pushing your videos out there, and just keep the awareness there. So we'll get started on another Kings of Mercia album probably now, so that we can just, if we can do some dates with this one, so that we can put the next one out as quickly as we can to keep that momentum going. And I think that's what you have to do now. I remember the days when, you know, bands used to do an album and have 3 years before the next one came out. I don't believe you can do that anymore. People's attention span is not in that 3 years. 9 million other bands have released albums, you know, and you've got to keep the momentum going. You've got to keep the band, if you can get the band out there on the road, and you can keep the albums coming and just keep people's interest there. I think that's the way you have to do it now. Having massive lulls in releasing a record, then going away and doing 50 tours with FM, and Jim going away for 2 years is not the way to get this thing rolling. You know, we have to keep the momentum going now that we've started.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the flavor of the month has turned into the flavor of the hour.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. That's it, Michael. It's all changed. And as I say, FM were the biggest culprits. We used to start an album, scrap it, you know, go away for a year, and then finish it 3 years after the last album. You know, you used to be able to get away with that then, but the world's a different place now. As the music industry is definitely a different place, you know. So got to keep that kind of awareness going and keep the momentum going, really.
Yeah. You mentioned social media. Do you do your own social media, or do you have people do that for you?
No, I'm not very clever at that kind of stuff. I'm old school, you know. So I have a guy called Scott that does my personal page. FM have their own people, and we've got a Kings of Mercia website, and I think Metal Blade take care of a lot of stuff there. There's somebody doing that at the moment, and we'll just have to keep going with it. And maybe soon me and Jim will do some stuff on the website and just keep the ball rolling until we get another track, maybe get a feeder track out there from Kings of Mercia too as soon as we can, and just keep the people interested in what we're doing, you know.
Mm-hmm. How many or how much discussion has there been between you and Jim about, you know, playing live? Would it be you mentioned festivals where you probably would have a little bit shorter set, so you've got enough material for that, but have you mentioned maybe augmenting that set if you guys had a headlining gig somewhere?
Well, we haven't talked about that, to be honest, but we've just talked about the fact we'd like to go out on the road and do it. You know, we'll tackle how long we're going to play and how we're going to do it when we get that far down the line. But you know, it's just that Jim sent me an email a few days ago saying, you know, we were just trying to sort of find out what both of us are doing. Like I'm over here doing stuff with trying to get stuff going over here. He's doing the same out there with Metal Blade. So he said, I just want this album to have the best it can possibly have because I think it's a fantastic album. And that's how we both feel. So we've not just made the album and it's like, right, that one's done, that I've got to go and write the new FM record. We want to see this through, make as much happen for Kings of Mercia as we possibly can.
Yeah. Does that make your FM bandmates nervous when you get involved in a project like this?
Well, they have to. It's what it is, isn't it? You know, it's FM take up a lot of my time, and I can fit things in around it. And all you have to do is plan. So if Kings of Mercia get some dates in and FM haven't got any, then I will say to the management, Kings of Mercia are going to do some dates, and that's it. It's done. It's what it is, and the other stuff all kind of has to intertwine, really, you know. And if you're going to make these records, especially records of this standard, you can't just make them then go away and do something else. It's such a waste of great music and time, and you know, it justifies everything we can do to make it work, you know.
The band is called Kings of Mercia. The album is called Kings of Mercia. You can get it on digital, CD, beautiful colored vinyl. Support the band, buy the album, buy some merchandise. It's some fantastic really tight rock, straight ahead, in your face music, but there's great musicianship, and there's something in this, I think, for everybody who likes good crunchy rock music. It's
that's great.
It's terrific. So I hope that it does really well for you guys. I'm very excited for you guys to have this out there in the world and to see how it does for you. I wish you nothing but the best. And
thank you.
And thank you so much for your time and tell me a little bit about the process of making this record.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's great to talk to you, Michael. So hopefully I can talk to you again on Kings of Mercia too. You know, when we sold 2 million albums. Yeah.
Oh yes, that'd be great.
That would be lovely. But thanks for the interview. It's been great. Really cool. You know.